Welcome to Encouraging Missions with Pastor and Missionary Phil Winfield. Pastor Phil has a simple passion with a clear purpose, inspiring churches, encouraging missionaries, and strengthening the body of Christ.
Well, hello and welcome back to Encouraging Missions with Phil. Well, today we have a special privilege. I'm with Marc Patton, who's been serving for, you said 33 years, I think, in
Yes,
Budapest in Hungary. And welcome to the little podcast today. And we really appreciate you taking the time to be with us. So,
glad to do it.
good deal, Marc. Well, tell us first of all a little bit about your family. How many family members, and what are they doing?
Yeah, so we have four kids. Um, the oldest is 31, the youngest is, I think, 25. Um, all four of our kids are actually born in Hungary, as you can see, since we've been here 33 years.
Okay.
But they all grew up and all four of them went to the States to study, and none of them came back. So we're now empty nesters here in
Okay.
Hungary. My wife, of course, ministers with me, but she also serves as a English teacher at a public school here in Budapest.
No, that's awesome. I think you have one son that's serving as a missionary, isn't he? And somewhere really interesting. Where is that?
Yeah, so my son and his wife, and they have three kids. They are serving in Zanzibar, Africa,
Wow,
which is a part of Tanzania. They've been there for 7 years now.
that's a unique place. Just sort of an island place, isn't it? Just off the coast.
It's an island off the coast of Tanzania,
Yeah,
right?
awesome. Well, hey, our real subject today is just talk a little bit about you and your ministry. 33 years is a long time to be anywhere, and I'm just so impressed. I follow your prayer letters, and I've enjoyed just getting to know you more over the last little while. But just a couple of things I wanted to ask you about. Tell us a little bit of short history about your ministry there, and just just tell us some of the major events and where you are in ministry right now.
Sure. Yeah, so we arrived in Hungary in 1993. That would have been just a few years after Hungary came out of communism. So it was a big time of transition, change. And of course, we've been here, in 3 decades. We've seen an awful lot of change and
Oh boy.
modernization, moving more and more toward the West, coming out of, after the post-communist era. We spent 2 years pretty much in language study, building relationships, and then our first church plant started in 95 in a city actually called Esztergom, Hungary. I actually served there for 26 years. Planted the church and then pastored it for many, many years. That was pretty much where our kids grew up as well. During that time, I also was a part of a church plant in a city called Tata, which is about maybe 25 miles from Esztergom. So
Okay.
there was like a 10-year period where I pastored both churches. So I did
Wow.
Esztergom and Tata for about 10 years. Then as our kids were flying, moving out of the nest and moving to the States, we felt the Lord moving us to complete new ministry in Budapest. So we actually, the church here in Budapest, it's called Focus Church. We started in 2019. And so we've been working in this church now. I guess this would be the 7th year of this church plant. And then, as you know, we are now laying the foundations for a daughter church that we'd like to start, really laying the foundations this year and hoping to launch either in the fall or the first part of 2027.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. I kind of got interested personally in what you were doing when you had made the move to Budapest, and we're planning that church there and at Grace, where I'm no longer the senior pastor there, transitioned back
Right.
into missions a little bit and what I'm doing now. But I remember when you started there, we were excited about that church plant and got involved. I don't remember exactly how we did what we did, but we were really with you in that, and so
Yes.
excited
Yeah.
to know that it's
Yeah.
that's going well. Well, hey, I want to move to. We appreciate that, and God certainly used you and pastoring two churches at the same time. Wow, that makes me tired even just hearing you say that. So, 25 miles apart as well. So, listen, I wanted to talk a little bit about this next church that you're planning, and I think you
Okay.
said it's an old section of Budapest, and it's called Obuda. Is that correct?
correct.
Okay.
So Budapest used to be two cities, Buda and Pest.
Yes.
Buda is the west side of the river. The Danube cuts right through the middle. Pest is the east side. And then Buda literally means old Buda. That was the oldest part of Budapest. So it was actually before the Hungarians even got here, it was a Roman settlement. So it'd be, I mean, almost dating back to the times of Christ. Uh,
Wow.
so
Oh,
it's got some old Roman ruins, like you got aqueducts and
wow.
amphitheaters, some stuff that predates the Hungarians.
Goodness gracious. Yeah, that was news to me when you were sharing that the other day about it being two cities on both sides of that river. When you say Danube, that's we're talking about some really famous rivers and really remarkable
Right,
places. I always hear of
right.
the river cruises that go down the Danube
Yeah,
and stuff. So that's kind of interesting. Hey, here's some questions that I have. As you're thinking about this, and I'm hoping that we can, you know, uh, kind of not just rejoice. We want to rejoice and celebrate with you and maybe gain some real clear prayer request out of this so that folks that are listening and then I myself and my wife, we can pray for you specifically. But in asking these questions, I'm hoping to be able to be a blessing to other missionaries that might be asking themselves, how
okay,
do we go about it? Well, as you know, 33 years of doing something, you've become what we would say is a veteran missionary, and you're well practiced and experienced, and you've done this more than once. And so there's going to be some questions I ask now that I hope will help other missionaries who might be
okay.
thinking about, okay, how can I do this where I am? So, well, the first one I want to ask is this: how do you get a congregation ready to? How do you get them ready? Because it's not just you're not going to be able to do it just you. So, how do you get a
Right.
congregation ready to plant a church?
Yeah, so when we started the church in Budapest in 2019, we actually, we kind of had a vision statement and then like six pillars. And we actually had one of our pillars as church planning. So even before we had planted the first church, we had put in there that we want to plant future churches. So it was something we wanted to be a part of the DNA of the church is that, a healthy church will plant other churches.
Uh-huh.
Um, in 2022, so we would have been 3 years old at that time. Every year, at the beginning of the year, we have like a vision meeting for the next year. And I just presented, I said, okay, we're going to plan in 2025. And I said, what do we have to do if we're going to be ready to plant 2025? So it's kind of like shocked everybody in a sense, like what, we're going to plant a church in 3 years.
Wow.
And, but yeah, so at that time, we kind of put it out there. And obviously it's 2026. You can see that we're a year late with our thing according to that. But really, it kind of put it out there that Mark's serious about this,
Oh,
and it's something we need to think about. And so it was every year. Then we'd kind of at that vision meeting, we'd kind of say, hey, where are we at now? What do we need to do to be ready to have a daughter church? And so it's like planting the seed and then watering the seed and then watering the seed. And then this last year, getting to that point where we're like, okay, we're going to have a special prayer meeting. And anyone that's interested in being a part of it, let's come together and let's pray. At that prayer meeting, we put a map up on the screen and said, okay, let's pray about where are we going to plant this church? So trying to involve the church also even in the decision of where, maybe somewhat in timing. Of course, we're dealing this in our leadership team meetings as well. Um, so yeah, it's kind of a long process. You're planting that seed, you're watering that seed, you come back to it time and time again, and you're trying to put the steps out there so the church kind of knows what's going on and prepares for it, so it doesn't
right.
kind of come out of nowhere for them.
Huh. So, I mean, what I'm hearing you say is that first it was kind of in your heart. You felt like as you were starting that church there that you wanted to have six pillars. One of which was we're not just going to start a church. We want to start a church that starts churches. So it was kind of
Exactly.
you called it the DNA of your church. That's excellent.
Right.
And then that's all. It's really easy to have these lofty, glorious ideals in our mind, but
Hmm.
having steps to do it. I thought that was awesome. Well, you said it was 2023 or 22, was it? Or when did
22.
and then when you stood up and says, okay, what do we have to do? So I would have called that as saying, yeah, you're pointing the way and casting the vision. You're actually
Right.
reinforcing a vision that you previously had stated, but you're
Right.
casting it. So that is awesome. That's really good. So you're getting them ready. You keep talking about it. You keep
Hmm.
pointing to it. You put a date out there. I want I've been where you are on this one. So, if you had not put a date out there and started shooting toward it, it wouldn't have happened. And it's better to be a year
Right.
late than not at all. so,
Yeah.
so that is
Well, what was
good.
interesting is numerous times I've had people say, well, in 2025, especially, well, you said 2025. When are we starting this church?
So they were
Because
ready.
like people knew
That's
that we were
awesome.
supposed to be doing something. And I'm like,
Yeah.
well, we've got a few other things to get in line first, but yeah, we haven't forgotten. We haven't forgotten.
Yeah, that concept also, you kept talking about it, and that kind of reflects and reinforces that people are up on what they're in on. So you were telling them all along. So they were up on it to the point that they're turning around and ask you, "Hey, it's 2025, right? When are we going to
Yeah.
do that?" That's excellent.
Yeah.
That is really good.
Yeah.
Okay, so you talked a little bit about this, but discovering the location. I mean, you said you were talking to some of the people and everything. How did you? What were the factors that brought you to say, okay, we need to go to this old section of what was Buda, and we'll go to Obuda, and what were the factors that made you that settled on that? Made you settle there?
Yeah, yeah. So it's kind of an interesting thing. So, like, if you would have asked me, at the beginning, 2019, how we're going to do our next church plan, I would have said, well, we'll find that area of Budapest where we already have a lot of church members that's maybe a little bit farther away, and
Yeah.
then we'll have, the people to start with, and that's exactly what we didn't do. So, I mean, and I could see, there's a lot of logic to it and all that, but when we looked at that, I was looking the places we have people coming from, they could all get to where we are right now fairly easily, and that's why they were coming. Um, and then we were looking at the city of Budapest, and we looked at Óbuda, this area, number one. You're talking about a district with, I believe, 140,000. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but something like that, 140,000 people. And to my knowledge, I think I only found four, what I would say, evangelical gospel preaching churches there. I'm not saying I know them all, but I mean, from what I could see online, researching. So it's like, man, here's a part of the city that has a great need. And number two, we still have zero members living there. So it's like, okay, this is a part of the city we're not reaching.
Uh-huh.
So we ended up looking at that part of the city instead of where we already have, say, 15, 20 members. It was like, let's look at a part of the city we can't reach from where we're at, and let's see if we can go there,
Hmm.
so that we're actually opening up a new area
Mm-hmm.
of Budapest that we cannot reach from our current location.
Yeah.
So that's actually the direction we took,
Uh,
in choosing a
wow.
location.
So basically, the darkest spots where you want to turn on the light, in a sense, where there's
Yeah,
very
so
little to.
this was in a sense need, we're so kind of looking at the need and where the need is. And obviously the challenge is that we don't have a core group of people already there. So
Wow. Got to do it on
yeah, we can
purpose.
talk more about that as we talk about the team building, but yeah, so there are some challenges to doing it this way.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a strategic move from a missional standpoint that we're
Wow.
trying to open up a new area of Budapest. But yeah, the challenges are greater because we don't have people already there in that area to
Okay.
work with.
Okay. Wow. That's admirable to actually look at it that way. Sometimes I think that we all kind of default to the idea of, okay, where do we have a group of our people that would be a core for us to get started. So that's seems like the default way of doing it. But in this case, you're thinking, where is there an absence? Where is there a lack? And
Right.
that's
Right.
really good. Okay, so that's wonderful. You get the congregation ready. You decide on a location. How about the team building part? I mean, yeah, it's obvious you just can't go there and turn on the lights and start preaching. I mean, you gotta. I mean, you need a team. And so, what does that look
Right.
like?
Yeah. So what we decided is that we'd spend the first 3 months of 2026 building a team within Focus Church, so within our current church.
Uh huh.
So, we'd already been talking about this for so long. And then at the beginning of really the 1st of January, I sent out a letter and said, hey, it's time to say, are you wanting to be a part of this church plan? Are you interested in being a part of this church plan? I actually sent out a form people could fill out online. And so we had about 18 people fill out the form. We announced, our first, we literally called a team building meeting, which we already had. 14 of these people showed up. So these are people that are members or attenders of Focus Church. And actually, in this case, two of them, they're not members, but they've started coming to our church, actually live in Obuda. The rest do not. But anyway, so what we're doing, we have two more of these meetings scheduled for the next 2 months, and it's like, okay, let's see what our group is within Focus Church. What is the team we have available that's saying, yeah, we want to be a part of this. We're willing to put our time, our energy, our effort into helping plant this church. My hope would be somewhere in that 12 to 15 range, because, I'm not sure all 18 of these people will end up actually doing it. But that would be my goal, is to have from Focus Church, our current church, a good group, about 12 to 15, that understand our vision, understand our DNA, that can immediately be a part of this team to help plant the church. We then have a second stage, which I'm going to say is from April all the way to September, probably, where we're going to start expanding and trying to draw people into the team from outside Focus Church. And here I would leverage relationships and contacts we've been building for years we work closely with the Baptist Union of Hungary, with the Baptist youth group, especially. I'll be speaking there in a couple of weeks and announcing that we're planning a church in Obuda, and saying it. When I say Baptist youth, this is primarily college students and young adults, and say, hey, we're planning to plant a church in Obuda. If you'd be interested in being part of this church plant, let me, and give them opportunity to sign up or get information. So my hope is that within the next, all the way to September, we'll pick up another, I'd say, good 12 to 15 people that are currently, they're not a part of Focus Church, but they're people that live in Budapest, hopefully live in Obuda. I'm really hoping to find a few couples or families that might actually live there to say, hey, yeah, we heard we're going to start a church. We want to be a part of it. So part of that will be, we'll actually have a worship and prayer service there in April. We're planning our first vision meeting in the early June. So these are like steps where we'll actually go to Obuda. These will be announced, you might even say advertised, like on social media, where people can see, oh wow, there's something going on. Where I'll come check it out. I want to see what's going on. Meet us, find out about the church plant.
Wow, that's just exciting. Just hearing you talk about it, and that you said something key there, and I don't want to chase this thing too long, just for keeping within our time frame here. But you said something about using relationships that you have established over the years there, and that is a wonderful thought, that you would have relationships outside of your own particular ministry, from which you could actually draw some interest, some people that might want to be a part of it. And I would just throw in here, as having been a missionary and done that, establishing relationships. You just can't establish too many connections and relationships, because you don't know when you might need certain things and certain people, and they can help you when you can't help yourself. And so, man, that's awesome. That you're not an isolated missionary just doing your own thing, but you got relationships with others. Baptist Union, you talk about Baptist Youth, and that's awesome, man. That's a wonderful well to pull from. So that's excellent.
Yeah.
Let me go to the next one here. And you could speak briefly about this one, the timing of it. How do you know when your church is ready? I mean, you've done all these things, and what was the switch that got flipped that said, okay, this September?
Yeah. So obviously we waited a year. So it's one of those things. Number one, you're never ready. So like, if you're going to wait to every piece falls in place, we've got the team, we've got the church planner, we've got every bit of financial resources. If you're going to wait till that, you may never plan. So, but at the other time, it was like, you have to have a feel for, like, we don't want to weaken our current church. Like, you go too early, you pull 15, 20 people out of your church. We're only at about 100 right now. So, you're going to feel that, so it's like, we have to find that sweet spot where, and it's really my prayer and my hope. I honestly think planning this church could actually be good for the and healthy for the existing church,
Yes.
that we're at that point now that we almost needed to take this step, to kind of move the church and like, okay, we're comfortable with our 100, but that's not why we're here. So, so it was finding that sweet spot, and, we don't even know if we found it or not. By faith, I'm saying we did, but
well, it sounds good.
The next year will tell us the story.
I like, there's one little thought there that you said it might be good for the home church, the church that's called Focus, right?
Focus, right?
And it might be good for them. Well, that's true. And something that just jumps to mind immediately is sometimes when people who have been leading, or people that are strong leaders, step out and go away, sometimes you reveal new leaders and people who might not have step forward because there wasn't that spot that needed the leader. They could have been leading, but they weren't because somebody else was doing it. And boy, I think every pastor sees that in his church, and probably the healthiest thing is to keep starting new churches. So, man, that is just wonderful. Well, before our time runs out, I like to just get your perspective on this question. And I could ask 50 church planners, and they all would come up many of the same things, but perhaps some different things. What would you consider are those indispensable elements that are necessary in church planning? It could be anywhere in the world, but especially in where you are. Those indispensable elements, what are they?
So first and foremost, I would say, maybe I'm not sure the order is exactly this, but I would start with the church planner himself. So what I have seen in Hungary, probably I would say that is the most important, is the right person leading the church plant, which means a calling and gifting. Sometimes you have people that feel like they're called, but then it seems like the gifting simply isn't there. Where sometimes you have gifted people, maybe the call is not strong enough. But so I would put the two, you need the church planner that's got the calling and the gifting to lead. The second thing I would say is clear vision. I've seen a lot of church plants fail because they can't answer the question, either what we want or why why is this church even needed, or why, especially in a city like Budapest, I think you need to be able to answer that question, because there are churches here. It's not like we're the only church, or the first gospel preaching church here. So it's like, why this area? Why is this needed? What are we going to do maybe that somebody else isn't doing? Who are we going to reach that somebody else isn't reaching? So and also how, maybe the strategy, what is our vision for this church? I see sometimes that people can't give that clearly. And I feel like the third thing I would say is building a team, but I feel like oftentimes it's hard to build a team if you don't have a clear vision. So it's like, what are you calling people to join? So if you can really have a clear vision, then people know what they're joining, and can be a part of it. So that'd be my third thing, though, is a team. Never plan alone. Some people in Hungary have tried it. Couples go off by themselves to a new city and want to plant a church, and they almost always fail. It's even if it's just two couples, but ideally I would say 3 couples, you need a team around you, you need people around you. You're stronger together. When one person gets burned out, somebody else steps in.
It's always good to have somebody to say, keep going, right? Just somebody there to encourage. That's good.
And you're not just preaching to your own family. If no visitors show up, you've got a couple other families there, or whatever. Fourth thing I say is mother church or supporting church. I really think, it's a biblical pattern of churches plant churches. So sometimes churches initiate it, sometimes church planters initiate. If a church planter initiates it, I think they need to find a church that kind of adopts them, to provide support. The fifth thing I would say is other support structures. That can be denomination, it can be a church planning network, it can be a mission board, but I think we need people that can serve as advisors to us, as counselors, as encouragers. They can open up resources for us, so other than just the team that I'm actually planning with, that I've got some other resources I can draw from. And then the last thing I wrote is finances, and I'm not sure it's last, it may be, but I put it there. But there's always a financial need that has to be put together. for renting space or church
Yeah.
planners or outreach, whatever.
Yeah. Well, I've been taking notes in a hurry here. As fast as you've been talking, I've been trying to jot things down. That is excellent. I love the order that you put it in, though, because without that person with the vision, the passion, and the understanding of the need, it's very difficult to get anything done. And the clear vision is huge. Speaking to the financial end of things, I have learned something over my lifetime in the ministry: is people don't so much give to need as they give to vision. They give to, they're
Yeah.
ready to get on board, like building a team. Something needs to be done over in such and such a place. Okay, yeah, it does. Who's going to do it? And when somebody steps forward, then somebody's willing to help. So that's awesome. And yeah, that's really, really good. Well, man, the last thing I'll ask you, and I'll close up, is I know that, being in the ministry myself, going to be 50 years before long. Being in the ministry this long, both as a missionary and as a pastor, there comes moments that we just get discouraged and there's obstacles. What do you do personally to stay encouraged? What do you do? Where do you find your
Yeah.
encouragement?
Well, I'd say several things. So, definitely, I think you start with a relationship with God, that you can go to God. You go back to your calling. I've gone back to my calling more than once. That God, you called me, you brought me here. So there's somehow you need to
You're gonna
provide, or
have to
you're going to
do
get me
you're gonna
through
have to help
this.
me here.
But also faith in his power, and that's the one thing that your 50 years or my 30 years helps with, is that we've been through the crises, and when it seemed there was going to be, we're not going to get through this, somehow we got through it and God came through. Or
Mhm.
so it's like you get to the point where, okay, this is going to be tough, but I've been here before, and God came through. But I'd also say a good wife.
Mm,
it, you know, I don't know how many times it's like my wife has stepped in there as an encouragement, like,
that's awesome.
when you feel like, you know, everything's falling apart or people are turning against you,
Right.
and, your
Yeah.
wife doesn't jump on board. she instead supports you,
Yeah.
and
That's
says,
good.
you feel like, if you lose everybody else, you got her. Um, a strong team. Like I said, I've learned, I did a lot of things more alone in the early years, at least as the leader. But I learned it's much better to lead with a team
It
around
is.
me.
Yeah.
We share responsibility. We share gifts. Some people are, some of my team around me they're stronger in certain areas than I am. Where one person's down, the other person lifts them up. Um, and then I would say that support structure from outside the team. We went through some pretty hard times, and God always had somebody, and it wasn't always the same person. I could list you some names. I don't think it's probably my place to do it, but where it was a supporting pastor, where there was a times it was people in Hungary, and there was times it's people in the U.S. That when I was very discouraged, I picked up the phone, called them, or got online and called them in this day and age, and they said, "Hey, Mark, we're with you. We're on.
Right.
We're with you." And there was times, when support was falling apart, where I had a pastor just say, "Hey, I'm going to help you out, and we're going to make sure you don't leave the field." And
That's awesome.
it's when you have people like that, it's huge. It's
Yeah.
huge.
Wow. That is just wonderful. That is just wonderful. Well, man, you have really filled up my time and given me exactly what I was looking for today, and I really, really, really appreciate it. And so, once again, you guys that are out there listening, this is Budapest, and he is beginning a new church there in, I think you said September, right? That's your goal, September.
The fall,
Yeah,
yeah,
the
the
fall
launch.
there
Mhm.
in Obuda. And as for you out there, you guys that are listening, put that on your prayer request. Put that down as a prayer request, and remember this group and Marc Patton and Karen and what they're doing over there. We pray that God will bring this to realization. And of course, it's His work. He's the one that's more interested in souls being saved and churches being planted than any of us. And so I'm sure the Lord's going before you. So. Well, Mark, thank you so very, very much. I'll
You're
ask you to
welcome.
hold on just a second after we close down here, but thanks for being with us today, and God bless
Okay.
you, and we will certainly pray for you, the Focus Church, the church plant coming up this year, Lord willing, in the fall. God bless, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for joining us. Be sure to subscribe to this podcast to hear the next edition of Encouraging Missions with Pastor and Missionary Phil Winfield.